Chess. Invented around 1500 years ago, this game of strategy is both the world's most popular and oldest board game played today. Stay tuned as we briefly discuss chess history, setup, rules, gameplay, and resources. We'll even show you how to make your own chessboard and pieces. This is Chess-4-Kidz. Chess is thought to have originated in India prior to 500 AD. By the 7th century, the Persians were playing chess, and by the 12th century, it had reached Europe. The game reached its modern form in the 15th century, but it wasn't until the 1800s that people started playing it competitively. Chess is a turn-based game, moving one piece on the chessboard at a time until the game is won, lost, or drawn. A chessboard is comprised of 64 squares. When you sit behind the board, a dark square should be in the bottom left corner. The columns that run up and down are called files, while the rows that run left and right are called ranks. Each square along a file or rank will alternate between a dark color and a light color. But each diagonal only consists of one color. This is important for bishops, whom we will discuss in a moment. Each player begins with 16 pieces, 8 pawns, 2 knights, 2 bishops, 2 rooks, a queen, and a king. On the back rank, the back row, place your rooks at the corners. Your knights go next to your rooks. Bishops go next to your knights. Lastly, position the queen and king based on whether you are playing with the dark or light colored pieces, with the dark queen going on the dark square and the light queen going on the light square. The rank or row in front of these pieces is filled with your pawns. While you're learning, look at a photo of the setup to help you memorize it. Now, let's discuss how each piece moves and how they are able to capture other pieces or check an opponent's king. The pawn is our most numerous piece, but often our most limited. The pawn moves straight ahead one square at a time, but on a pawn's first move, can move 2 squares forward instead of 1. What makes a pawn interesting is, even though it moves straight forward, it captures diagonally. Capturing is when a player's piece is able to take their opponent's piece off the board. Also, if a pawn is able to reach its opponent's back rank, it can treat itself to an upgrade called a promotion, becoming any piece on the board besides a king. Most often, it chooses queen. Pawns have a few other quirks that we will discuss later, so let's move on to the knight. The knight is special because it is the only piece that can jump over other pieces. The knight also moves and captures in an L pattern, which is 2 spaces in any direction and 1 space to the side. Knights are usually most effective when they occupy the center of the board. Now, the bishop can move forward or back as long as it's diagonally. This is also how it captures. While each player starts with 2 bishops, they will never be in each other's way. One bishop will occupy the light square diagonal, and the other will only travel by dark squares. Next, let's talk about the rook. The rook moves and captures in any direction as long as it's in a straight line. More powerful than the first 3 pieces we discussed, the rook works well with its twin and is probably the easiest piece to understand and move. Except when it comes to castling, which we will discuss later. Now the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. The queen can be thought to move and capture like a bishop and a rook combined. This means it moves and captures both straight and diagonally. Treat your queen with care, as losing it by mistake or blunder will almost certainly cost you the game. Lastly, the king is your most important piece. The king can move or capture in any direction as long as it's one square at a time. The king can never be captured or place itself in harm's way. Threatening a king is placing it in check. If placed in check, it must move, find a willing blocker, capture, or have a teammate capture. If it can't escape check, it's checkmate, aka game over. Knowing the rest of the rules is easy now that you know how the pieces can move. To begin a game, the light-colored pieces start. The game will always end in a win, loss, or draw. Winning a match happens in 3 ways. Checkmate your opponent's king, have your opponent resign, or win because your opponent runs out of time. Drawing a match can happen in a number of ways as well. A stalemate draw is where your king is safe and there are no further legal moves that you can play. This can be a saving grace when you are down big. If you and your opponent make the same move 3 times in a row, that is a 3-fold repetition, and that triggers a draw. Drawing from insufficient material happens when, even though you might be ahead on pieces, there aren't the right pieces left to force a checkmate. There is also a 50-move rule that causes a draw when no pawn is moved or piece captured within 50 moves. Plus, opponents can just agree to draw. Easy peasy. Here are the 2 additional quirky rules players should know. If on a pawn's first move, it pushes forward 2 squares to avoid being captured, your opponent has the opportunity on their next turn to capture that pawn by moving their pawn to the square it would have occupied if the pawn had moved only 1 square. This sometimes confusing capture gives your opponent a chance to capture a pawn in passing or in passant. Oh, and remember when we said that only knights can jump other pieces? Technically, there is an exception. When you castle, you break all the rules. You get to move 2 pieces on 1 turn, move the king 2 spaces, and your rook gets to jump your own king. To castle, there must be open spaces between your king and the rook. The king and rook must not have already moved. Your king also can't be in check, pass through check, or finish in check. To castle kingside, move the king 2 spaces towards the rook. Then allow the rook to jump to the square on the opposite side of the king. To castle queenside, you do the same thing, except you'll notice the rook has to move further to jump the king. Castling can keep the king safe by placing it behind a row of pawns, and quickly moves the king out of the middle of the board. A game of chess can be thought of in 3 parts: the opening, the middle game, and the end game. During the opening, you begin to develop your minor pieces, the pawns, knights, and bishops. The opening game plan usually involves trying to control the center of the board. As you advance, you may choose to study different opening lines, which is a unique group of initial moves in a game. Examples of a famous opening and opening defense include the Ruy Lopez and the Sicilian defense. A player must be prepared to adapt to and overcome many different opening variations, as each of your opponent's responses has the potential to create a position you've never encountered prior. Once the minor pieces are developed, and hopefully the king is castled, the middle game begins. A player will often continue to battle for dominance of the center of the board. Pieces may begin to be exchanged, and both players battle to take the initiative. That is accomplished by making moves that threaten the opponent. It's in the endgame that the pieces are sparse. Pawns increase in importance as they have a chance for a game-changing promotion. And kings often go on the attack. Like openings, some in-game scenarios are so common that they have specific strategies you can study in order to checkmate your opponent's king. Your local Maricopa County Library offers many great chess resources for kids. Books I found useful while creating this program include Chess for Children by Sabrina Chavanez, Get Into Chess by Rachel Stuckey, Power Chess for Kids by Charles Hurton, a trio of books by Murray Chandler, Chess for Children, Chess Tactics for Kids, and How to Beat Your Dad at Chess. Additionally, we offer ebooks as well, like A Kid's Guide to Chess by Elisif Ripon, which can be found on Hoopla. This is just a few of the many chess books you can check out from your local Maricopa County Library. Today, we will give you the instructions for creating a felt chessboard at home. Please speak with your parent or caregiver before beginning this project. There are many potential modifications in materials, style, and size. Do what feels best and keep your focus on having fun. Begin with 14 9x12-inch felt sheets. You will need 6 in a dark color, 6 in a light color, 1 in an alternate dark color, and 1 in an alternate light color. The last 2 sheets are for our pieces and will need to be a color that can be written on. Use a ruler and cut your 6 dark colored sheets into 3 3x12-inch strips. This means cutting them vertically or long way. Do the same with your light colored sheets as well. This will produce 18 total strips in your dark and light colors. You have enough material to make 9 3x24-inch extra long strips, but you only need 8 of each color to complete your board. Use a glue gun to attach the ends of the 2 strips. Once you have created your 8 extra long strips for each color, you need to begin weaving, like latticing a pie. To weave a lattice, you must lay 8 of your extra long strips for one color in a horizontal row. Opposite colored extra long strips must be weaved in vertically. Remember, the length and width of the board is 8 by 8 squares. Creating a weave can be difficult at first, so only use your glue gun to secure the strips of the lattice once you are sure your work is correct. Once your board is complete, you'll need pieces. Use a circular object smaller than 3 inches to trace 16 circles on each of your alternate dark and light colored sheets. Use these traced markings to cut out circles for your pieces. Mark each circle by marker with a letter to indicate the piece it represents. Just make sure to use an N for knight instead of K. That letter is generally reserved for a king. Feel free to make extra pieces for instances of in-game promotion. Once the craft is complete, you are ready to play. Find a partner, have fun, and always be a good sport. May your victories be plentiful, your defeats be few, and your draws be necessary. Thank you for tuning in to Chess-4-Kidz. Your summer reading secret code is chess. If you enjoyed this program and you're interested in a follow-up program that highlights chess strategy, tactics, language, and notation, please leave a comment at mcldaz.org. Bye.